When you have individuals that have a murderous spirit, a very rageful spirit, they want to take someone's life, I don't think it matters where they are. I'm going to jump back into this, but I want to give an example. I live in Minnesota, and so a city over from where I'm at, there were just state officials murdered by a man that was impersonating a police officer. And the thing that made my heart kind of drop when I thought about that is because when you think about police, you think about safety, right? You think about protection. And so who would think that a police officer, this wouldn't be a police officer, but this is actually someone trying to harm me? So I'll correlate that to the church.
Greetings and welcome to the Trigger Warning Talk podcast. We have uncensored conversations. We exchange information. We provide tons of resources for the listeners and the viewers. I'm your fire medic host, LP, in the building again for another great interview. We got a great topic that we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about divinity and domestic violence. I got a very special guest in the house, Minister Shaniqua Robinson, my sister. She interviewed me on her podcast. If you guys are listening, you can always stream on any of your favorite platforms. We're on over 12. You can also watch these interviews, like this interview that we're recording now, in 2 places, in Spotify and our YouTube channel, which is our company name, Penton Pending Consulting Solutions, LLC. Minister Shaniqua, what's going on with you today?
Hi, brother LP. You all know him as Larry Penton. I am so excited to be here on the podcast. And the reason being, when you all get an opportunity, please do go listen to his interview on the JESUSgirl.ENT podcast. It was phenomenal. And so me being here is actually fruit of that conversation, because this podcast had not yet come into existence. But since he's done some phenomenal, amazing things. And so I'm so grateful to see it. It is needed for such a time as this. And I'm just grateful to be here. I'm honored and I'm humbled to be.
Look, I want to deep dive into this stuff. I'm telling you, I got goosebumps right now. I love you so much, and I salute the work that you're doing as a minister, as a woman minister, as a black woman minister, because y'all don't recognize, but I keep telling y'all, ever since the inception of this podcast, we absolutely love and highlight educated, merit-based black women all around the world. We have them on this podcast. If you want more information about Minister Shaniqua, you can go to her link tree. It's at JESUSgirl.ENT. I have all her links on the screen right now. You can actually watch this interview and look at all of the links that she has on here. I mean, she got all kind of stuff that she's doing. So I want to jump right into it. First of all, how have you been doing?
I've been doing great. I recently graduated with my associate degree in liberal arts and sciences. I'm preparing to go over to the University of Minnesota, where I'm going to continue prayerfully all the way through to my doctorate. And so I've been spending a lot of time in my studies, a lot of time with my family, a lot of time in ministry. As you all can see on the link tree, if you click that, I have gotten into producing magazines. I got to connect with brother LP and get him in there. Because we're doing magazines now. And so I'm doing good. I'm doing amazing, loving on God, loving on God's people, and moving forward in the things of God.
Let me bring up this other screen. We're going to be doing some deep dive and some serious conversations today. For those that don't know or maybe not sure or familiar, I am a person who not only am a retired paramedic and firefighter, I currently deal with a lot of serious classes. CPR, basic life support. I teach for the Red Cross, American Heart Association, American Health and Safety Institute. I also teach Stop the Bleed. I travel all across the U.S. teaching these classes from the Carolinas to California for StopTheBleed.org and the Stop the Bleed Coalition. Speaking of which, I get a lot of breaking news stories, Minister Shaniqua, a lot of times before they hit the major airways because of that tactical work that I do, because of my security clearance, even though I'm retired. One of the things that I've really been troubled about are these church-related security issues. And so I want to get your thoughts about that. I'm going to bring on the screen here one of the breaking news stories that I get all the time on a daily basis. This incident took place in Lexington, at the Richmond Road Baptist Church. And then there was another shooting that happened we'll talk about a little later on. I want to cover that story real quick because I don't think that a lot of people realize how many of these cases and these stories and these true crime related issues are happening more. I'm reading this from Christianity Today. It says Kentucky church shooter killed pastor's wife and daughter. Domestic violence and family disputes remain a top cause for violence on church property, which is why you're part of this podcast interview today. Let me just give you the synopsis of what happened. Okay. It says a Kentucky man looking for the mother of his children shot a state trooper, stole a car, drove to a small Baptist church, and opened fire on her relatives as they prepared lunch after the service on Sunday. So this was July 13th. The suspect fatally shot the pastor's wife and adult daughter, the sister of the woman he was looking for, in the church's basement kitchen and injured the pastor and the woman's brother-in-law outside before being killed by police, as her sister recounted in the local news reports. The incident took place in Lexington at the Richmond Road Baptist Church, led by longtime pastor Jerry Gum, who remains hospitalized. Gum's wife and mother of 8, Beverly, died on the scene along with her daughter Christina. Home. Fayette County Coroner Gary Ginn said this church was a small church and the majority of the individuals there are biologically related in some way or another. If not, they've been friends for many, many years. They're a very tight-knit group of people. The coroner's office identified the suspect as 47-year-old Guy House. Police say he shot a Kentucky state trooper who tried to pull him over. Then he fled the scene, carjacked the vehicle, and proceeded to the church. The police indicated preliminary evidence pointed to a connection between the suspect and individuals at the church. Officials haven't identified a motive for the shooting, but Beverly Gum's daughter, Star Rutherford, said House came in the back door asking for one of her sisters. When they told him the sister wasn't there, he responded, well, someone is going to have to die then, and shot them. He wanted to hurt my sister or someone she loved. And then the county clerk stated that House, who had a criminal history involving theft and drug use, had been scheduled to appear in court for a domestic violence hearing on Monday, but the hearing did not involve the woman he was looking for at the church. And this shooting again marks another deadly incident on church property. Another example of it's called familial conflict spilling over into church life. Around 14% of violent incidents involving deadly force at houses of worship stem from domestic conflicts, with the faith-based security network tracking 269 cases between 1999 and 2020. And I'll just wrap up saying this. Year after year, domestic abuse spillover when a fight at home comes to church is one of the 3 most common killers at faith-based organizations, according to that network's founder. They said the other top causes for violence on church grounds are robbery, personal conflict, and it's much rare for perpetrators to be religiously motivated. Most of the time, 62% deadly attacks occur often during off hours when no events are taking place. So I say all that to say, which is why we got you on here. What say you to this?
Okay, so there's it's a lot to unpack. But one thing we got to keep in mind is that the enemy, so the devil, because of my faith, those who are listening in will understand that he comes to steal, kill, and destroy, right? Yes. And so when you have individuals that have a murderous spirit, a very rageful spirit, they want to take someone's life, I don't think it matters where they are. I'm going to jump back into this, but I want to give an example. I live in Minnesota, and so a city over from where I'm at, there were just state officials murdered by a man that was impersonating a police officer. And the thing that made my heart kind of drop when I thought about that is because when you think about police, you think about safety, right? You think about protection. And so who would think that a police officer, this wouldn't be a police officer, but this is actually someone trying to harm me. So I'll correlate that to the church. So when you go to church, you think safe place, you don't think violence, you don't think danger. But in the dispensation of time that we're living in, you just got to prepare for the unexpected. So I'm grateful that we are having this podcast episode. So maybe more churches will be aware that you, according to the article, he went through the back door is what you said. So, and he wasn't even greeted by the pastor when he went through the back door. He was greeted by the sister. So, or a security guard. He was greeted by a sister, somebody who was familiar with him, who knew him, who probably knew about the relationship. I think it had something to do with her sister dating him or something of that nature. And so they probably knew that something was a little bit off about him, but they didn't expect for it to be deadly. And so in the dispensation of time that we're living in, we have to be so careful that you just got to expect the unexpected. You don't know how things will go. So the moment you see somebody and you know that there's been some type of conflict, like you said, according to statistics, most of these things occur because of a fight that happened outside of church. If you knew that there was something that took place, you should alert your pastor. You know, this happened, something happened. You should be aware of this, because we're not aware how this person is going to respond. And when you alert your pastor, that puts them on guard, because believe it or not, Brother LP, there's a lot of pastors that got security guards that are armed. And some of them are from the police department. And they have on suits, so you wouldn't know that they're armed, but many of them are. But when you're in worship, and again, like I said, even with the police officer example, you think safety, you think protection. So most of the time, people are not just ready for a war, for lack of better words. But messages like this helps us to get prepared. I'll give an example, and then I'll yield back to you. There's a pastor over a church, I think it's called 2819 Church. His name is Phil Mitchell. I don't want to misquote him. I believe his last name is Mitchell, though. And he was in the middle of a sermon, and he's preaching. And he's preaching to all of these people. And this guy runs up to the stage, and he's like, pray for me, pray for me. You know, he's a little aggressive with what he's saying, but it's like all unorthodox. He comes from nowhere. And what the man of God says when he turns around, he's like, hey, hold on, man. Don't just, he's like, y'all, wait a minute. I'm going to pray for him. But don't just run up to the stage. You can get shot up in here. So when he said that, he wasn't saying it like, I just want to take you out. We're at church. But because of the nature of the times that we're living in, we just all got to be safe. And so I believe this message, especially when it comes down to domestic violence and that, they may have went to church to try to escape his rage and his anger, but it would have been helpful to let somebody know what was going on so that they could have been prepared. Now, as for that family, we keep them uplifted in prayer, because now the pastor, his wife and his wife's daughter and the others that were harmed, even he was harmed, they weren't even a part of the relationship. So they got caught in the crossfire of somebody else's, conflict. And so these are things we got to keep in mind too. So if you got something going on, let's not just even talk about church, even though that's where we're headed. If you go to your sister's house, if you go to your mother's house, if you go to your father's house, and you know you got some conflict with somebody and they may show up, let that person know. That is not just for your safety, it's for their safety as well, because his pastor was hurt and he lost his wife and his daughter over something that he may or may not been aware that was going on.
I'm so glad that you said it. Here's why. Because we all know, see something, say something. Mm-hmm. This ain't snitching. Okay.
That's right.
We ain't talking apples and oranges. This is apples and hammers. Okay.
That's right.
See something, say something, and takes on a whole nother level of awareness, especially when you're talking about a domestic violence issue at a house of worship. Now, I don't know if you have heard me have this conversation about my view and my definition of domestic violence, because I've been saying it for years, and I'm starting to see it more in media, social media, on platforms, being correlated to events that happen outside of a person's roof and between their four walls where they reside. I have been saying for years, Sister Minister Shaniqua, domestic violence happens wherever you feel you have domesticated yourself. It is not just where you reside, it's where you work, because I give examples of how many people have all kind of stuff at their job, in their locker, at their cubicle, on their desk, in their office, where they've made it their home away from home. Because if you're not at home, you're either at work and or at school. And you make that spot, again, all those things that I named, you make that your personalized space. It is something that you have domesticated. Pictures, all kind of things that people have in their personal space that the company gives them at that workplace environment. You've domesticated that. In the workplace, also, at schools, at anywhere that you feel is your home away from home, your local grocery store that you frequent all the time. I'm in North Carolina, so we have Publix, we have Harris Teeters, we have Aldi's and other stores like that, but those are some of the big food chains here. You know, if I go to a Food Line, which is a big chain down here, I got a favorite one that's literally 90 seconds from where I live. That's because I love going grocery shopping, Minister. I'm just saying, like, your brother loves going. Mrs. LP don't even like going grocery shop with me, except for now they do curbside pickup and they do delivery. So we did that for the first time. We ordered our stuff online and then picked it up.
I love that. I love that service. Go ahead.
Here's why I bring it up, though. Let's say she and I went to do a curbside pickup.
Okay.
And we know a few years ago, there was a store where the guy was casing the joint. He ended up going into that store. It was in a primarily black neighborhood. And he killed all of those people.
Wow.
Except for a couple of them. And the ones that he didn't kill were not black and brown. Okay. He intentionally sought out those individuals, just like Dylan Roof, who killed the 9 parishioners. It was in a primarily black church. And he looked for those individuals to kill. Domestic violence happens anywhere you feel domesticated, because anywhere you feel domesticated, you feel what?
Safe. That's right.
Feel secure. This is why I got a buddy right now. We call him Mr. Sparrow. It's Brian Tuck. He's licensed and certified to teach concealed carry, and he does church security, and he's now in Chicago doing church security up there. And I'm telling you, I just sent him another article today about this thing that I saw online in relationship to church security. I know for me, I work with so many individuals that focus on either executive protection, they're doing church security, they're increasing their revenue teaching concealed carry. A lot of the laws now in the book state you are, or changing to where you don't even have to have a permit. So you have more and more people that are armed. I say that because I just presume everybody's armed. Me personally, because this is stuff that I talk about when I'm teaching my classes. Everybody's armed. Whether you have even this pen. See this ink pen that I got in my hand?
Yes.
I can put somebody in a situation where they're hurt, injured, dying, or dead just with this ink pen. Yep. I can go through TSA. They're not going to take this from me. They're not going to confiscate it. I'm not going to get arrested for it. But I can put somebody in a state where they're hurt, injured, dying, or dead just with this. I can use this as a writing tool or as a weapon. You got people that are walking around.
Or your teeth. People can use that as a weapon.
I got my water bottle I just bought from TJ Maxx. I can bust somebody upside their head to the white meat if I want to. I'm saying this in my classes. I'm just saying, I have to keep it real. I'm like, you want me to just click on these videos, or you want me to talk?
I want you to talk. The reason I said that about the biting too, and I'm grateful you said that about the bottle, is because we are not living in the time that we used to live in, where a fight is fair, right? And, even in that movie Friday, he said, you win some, you lose some, but you live to fight another day. That's not the dispensation of time that we're living in. So even if you had a heated debate with someone and you're not thinking they're armed, you're thinking our armor is our fist, that person may not be trying to fight. They may be trying to kill. So their intention, if they bite you, maybe to try to dismember you, or if they hit you. Now, the biting thing is nasty, Brother LP, but I can tell you some stories. I am not, come on here. My mama didn't teach us to do that. She taught us to fight. But it's people out here that are not, they not in a right state of mind. So you got to think of everything can be a weapon. I'm telling you the truth. You have to think anything can be a weapon. And so when you're talking about their arms, I don't want them to just think because they got a physical object in their hand, like a device. They may be thinking of their own things that they have that may be devices. And even if you want to have a physical, let's handle this, settle this. You win some, lose some, live to fight another day. They may be thinking, I want to end your life. So it's just that serious. Go ahead. I'm just saying.
This is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, where we have uncensored conversations. We exchange information. I'm not going to curse because I'm talking to the minister today. But I will use some colorful words that may trigger you. So if you're triggered at any point during this podcast and you need help immediately, call 911, okay? That's going to get you the help that you need immediately. And ask for a crisis intervention trained police officer to show up. Let them know if it's not a situation where maybe somebody has a weapon. Maybe it's a mental health related issue. Right. If you don't need immediate help, call 988. Here in the United States, that number is available toll free 24/7. It's the crisis and suicide hotline. So we'll have all that information and some others in the show notes for every episode. We're talking with Minister Shaniqua Robinson of Minnesota, who is talking about divinity and domestic violence. We were talking about the church shooting incident that happened in Kentucky this week. I want to add one other thing to that conversation. For me, as a professional who talks about and trains people on the security side, the prevention side, I want to ask you, what do you say, or what have you said to your congregation as of late in regard to not just what you share with us? What have you not said to them? That's what I should have said. Mm-hmm. What have you not said to them that maybe you wouldn't say in church, but you know you can say it here?
Right. So a major part of it that I think, and this is something I said on my podcast even recently that I've shared with my children, is that I taught my children how to fight. That is something, like, I think that the misconception about, especially Christians, is that you just have to let people hurt you.
Turn the other cheek.
Harm you. Turn the other cheek. Keep turning the other cheek. But I'm going to tell you something, Brother LP, and this is all honesty. When my son was little, he got into a fight at school. And when he got into the fight, I disciplined him. I said, I don't want you fighting. I'm going to teach you how to fight, this and that. And God had to convict me about that, because I saw a video on social media where a little boy was sitting on the bus. He wasn't bothering anybody. But this kid kept slapping him and slapping him and slapping him and videotaping him while he was slapping him. And the kid would not fight back. And he was just crying. And the thing that came to my mind, which is something that I'm sharing with other people now, but to your point too, is that I'm going to tie it all in, is that you need to know how to defend yourself because of the times that we're living in. And people think because you're a Christian or a believer, they can just hurt you, they can just harm you, you're going to turn the other cheek, and they may kill you. So even if you're not, and thank God we're on the Trigger Warning podcast, because I can openly share that, even if you're not a person that starts things, you mind your own business. There are people that bother people that mind their own business all of the time. Just like in this instance at the church that was just shot up. And one thing that I'm grateful for that they're implementing in workplace, when I was just at M Health Fairview Hospital working there, they had a saying that if an open armed shooter came in, and they did a few drills with that, is that you either hide, you run, or you fight. So you run, hide, or fight, right? Yes. And so the last one they say is to fight. But the reason they say that as an option is because maybe you might be able to disarm the person and save your life as well as everybody else that's around. And so because of the times that we're living in, what I'm telling to everybody that I know, and one thing, this is really, really challenging for me because I'm really not a person that's for weapons, and I'll tell you why. And some people may not know this about me, and I'm going to share why. But I'm not necessarily a person that believes that you should have weapons at home with small children. And the reason being is because a lot of people have had incidents with that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, because some people know how to hide them and you put them in safe boxes. But I remember as a younger girl that my brother, he was getting into a gang fight. It was a big gang fight at the end of my block. And while they were in this gang fight, a guy took out a weapon. It was such a bad fight, Brother LP. They were pulling stuff off the houses and using it as weapons. And so somebody pulled some siding off of a house and hit a person. And then somebody took a brick and threw it and hit my brother. And when they hit my brother, he instantly started to,
bleed.
Yeah.
Head wounds bleed a lot.
Exactly. So as his big sister, of course, I wanted to protect him. But I'm thinking to myself, now this is fine. I ain't finna jump out there. Why they throwing all of these different things? You ain't finna hit me next. So I go back to the house. But the problem was, my intention was, I'm about to get this weapon that I knew that my stepdad had. He had 2 Desert Eagles that he kept in a safe in his closet at the top. We knew where it was. And this is the reason why I say, even when it comes down to weapons, they were in a safe. And what I did without thinking, my adrenaline is high, and I'm thinking, save your brother, stop this fight. You know, I wasn't even necessarily thinking take someone's life, but stop this fight. I take the safe, throw it down, it breaks open, and I wasn't shot because there was nothing,
it wasn't loaded.
It wasn't loaded. Mm-hmm. I loaded, run, jump out the window, and now I'm running down the street. So, you know, Miss Birdie, and this is the reason that this stopped, is because as soon as I get down the street, I'm aiming this weapon. Now, I am 15, 16 years old.
You got a round in the chamber also?
Yes.
Oh, so loaded and locked.
I had it loaded and locked. I did it like this and did it like this and jumped out the window. And my younger brother, who was in the house, he said, all I remember is you running and you jumped out the window and didn't touch none of the sides. Like I just kind of slid through it and they touched nothing. Just slid through the window. And I'm running down the street. And so as I'm running down the street, I point the gun. At this time, you know, everybody's dispersing, and all I can think about is what just happened to my brother. In a fair fight, everybody's physically fighting, but then y'all start throwing weapons. So I say some obscenities. I wasn't saved at this time, y'all. I was still very, very young. God really transformed my life. I talk about that a lot in my book, as well as some other podcasts. But I'm sharing all of this to say, we talking about safety precautions and that. And so I pointed, and as I'm pointing this weapon towards these people that I consider to be the enemy, my mother takes it, she grabs my hand and points it at her stomach, and she says, stop. And when she says that, automatically, what do you think I did? I let it go.
You let it go.
I let it go. And so as a 16-year-old girl, I could have been in jail. I could have hurt someone really, really badly. I could have, ended my own life prematurely because I had never shot a gun before. And maybe everything I knew how to do, the enemy may have told me, or maybe I saw it on the movie. But I did all of those things effectively. And so even with talking from the topic of protection, because that's what we're talking about with the times that we're living in, maybe if you're going to have those kind of things at home and you got small children, maybe do a run-through talk with them about the severity of what could take place with these kind of items, and make sure you have it so secure and a way that they couldn't get to it if they wanted to get to it, for a lack of better words. My whole take on it would be, if you're going to have weapons at home, it's for the safety of protection for yourself and your family. Definitely have a run-through conversation with your children about that, the precautions, the things that they should keep in mind, some of the dangers that they may have if they were to prematurely use it or even access it. And so that's just my take on it. I believe that we are in a dispensation of time that we just can't believe that everything is safe. I don't believe anywhere is just completely safe, especially when you think about church. That's a place where people are going to worship. Nobody's thinking that I'm going to go to praise God and lose my life. So even for those who are leaders over ministries, maybe making your security team be more alert that there should be somebody at every door. And even if they want to get the word that's being preached, the worship service experience, have them to have some speakers or something so they don't miss out on it. But we have to have some people on post because of some things that are happening. We're in perilous times, and you just got to be ready.
I'm glad that you say that also, because I'm a proponent of public health, public safety, and gun safety. I don't talk about the politics. I don't get into the 2A or the Second Amendment, which people call 2A for short. I don't get into that. And I've talked about this with almost everybody that I can come in contact with. The reason that I don't get into the politics is because you start losing people for different reasons. If you get into the politics, you got people that afford to get all of this stuff. I say to people, if I'm talking, let's say you invited me to your church. Mm-hmm. I started talking about this very topic. And I said, hey, I'm going to bring in, I like using props. So here's my prop of a firearm. It's all plastic. I got it off eBay. It's $13. It's a model of a Glock. No metal, no moving parts. I'd say if you want to talk about firearms, weapons in the home or on your person, what's concealed or open carry, I say first you need to educate yourself about the weapon. Doesn't matter if it's a revolver, it's a semi-automatic, It's a fully automatic, no matter what the weapon is in terms of a firearm. You have to teach everybody, especially those that live with you, even the little ones, even the little rugrats, about the 4 universal firearm safety rules. I'll give it to you real short. The acronym we use is called TANK, like an army tank. T, treat all weapons as if they're loaded and perform a clearance check before you handle it or hand it off to somebody else. So in that situation where you gave your mom that Desert Eagle 50 firearm and you handed it off to her, you didn't say that you slid the rack back and ejected that round that was in there.
I didn't. I didn't even hand it off. I just let it go. She kind of put her hand like where she put it in such a way. My mom is licensed gun permit, so she knew what to do. I didn't know because I had never. So she put her hands in some of the grooves in a way that if I did not let it go, I would have pulled the trigger. So I just let it go. I didn't hand it off. I just released it.
You just released it.
Yes.
So that's T. A, always be aware of your target and its backstop because bullets go through things, including people. Okay. There was a case that got adjudicated recently in LA where the LAPD got a call for a active situation. They go to this mall. This guy was brandishing a knife. And they tried to negotiate with him, get the weapon out of his hands. He wouldn't do it. Either he made a move or they got tired. I forget what led them to start shooting at the guy. I think he approached them. Oh, they shot the guy. Well, one of the officers shot 3 rounds. 2 rounds hit the guy. 1 round missed the guy. That round that missed the guy went through a wall. On the other side of that wall was a dressing room. In that dressing room, because it was one of those situations of run, hide, fight, because it was a hostile event, there was a teenager in there in the dressing room. She got struck and killed by that round.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the officer didn't know that somebody was in there. He was acquitted of the charges that he faced. That being said, you're responsible for every round that comes out of that firearm that you have in your possession, whether it's yours or not. If you find a gun in the alley or on the street or something like that and you discharge that weapon, you can be sued and tried for that criminally and civilly. Same thing if they are hurt, injured, dying, or dead. Now, it does not mean that you're going to get convicted, but you face a high risk of that and have to come out all this money for legal fees, or you might have to get a legal aid person. So that's A. Always be aware of your target and its backstop. N. Never point your weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy. That could be a firearm. It could be a bat. It could be a blunt object. You grab somebody and want to bite them because you ain't got nothing in your hands. Okay? You got to be aware because anything can be used as a weapon, and that's why I brought that up. I didn't know you was going to bring up the teeth thing, but I'm glad that you said that. That's really thought. And then lastly, K, keep your finger off the trigger and outside the trigger guard until you have acquired your target and are ready to shoot. So for those that have not or that are not watching this podcast, please watch these episodes too, because I bring all kind of visual aids when I'm talking, whether it's something that I found online or I'll bring a prop up to demonstrate the point even more. So that's the 4 universal safety rules when it comes to firearms. And then I'll add this. When was the last time, congregation, that you heard or saw a breaking news story about a little kid who got electrocuted because they stuck a fork or a knife or some thin metal object in an outlet and they got killed?
So
I'll wait. And most people are like, I can't even remember last time. And I'll say why. You know why that is because what do we do when we know we're going to have kids? We baby proof our houses, right? Baby gates and plastic electric covers and all that stuff we buy. We make sure the smoke detectors are working. All of these things we do. Once they can crawl and walk and talk and say mama and dada, we threaten them within an inch of their life. You don't touch anything that's flammable. You don't touch the gas, the electric stove. You don't play with matches. You don't even go in my purse. Don't even look at my wallet. All of these things. Swap out any of those dangers that I just said and put a firearm in its place. It's the same conversation.
Yeah.
What did I not say? I ain't say nothing about Democrat. I ain't say nothing about Republican. I ain't say nothing about how you vote. I didn't say nothing about where you live. I didn't say nothing about your ethnicity. I didn't say nothing about your orientation. Why? because this is a human to human conversation. Anybody can get it.
That's right.
I get more stories about kids that get access to loaded, unlocked guns who end up discharging that weapon accidentally than you would believe.
Yeah.
You got to have the same thought process when you're talking about safety from that perspective. That's how I don't lose people when I'm having these conversations with them. It doesn't matter, again, church folks or not. I can have these conversations about the safety issue. So as far as the church is concerned, and I get what you're saying, because I have a firearm in my home. I have an electric gun safe. It has all kind of stuff, all kind of safety features in it. My wife knows about it. I know about it. And so I stole and staged that weapon properly. It's not just laying out where anybody can get access to it.
Right.
So you have to educate people on that. I go to the range. I'm a licensed, certified concealed carry permit holder in my state. In my state, the license and certification covers multiple states. I keep myself abreast on the laws when it comes to the firearms. So each state has different laws. You know, you better not go to Illinois with a firearm and you ain't got the right credentials and all
That's
this.
right. That's right. Yeah.
So I want to jump to the next topic. I want to bring this up on the screen real quick.
Okay.
You ever heard of the term holy hush?
I haven't. You know what? It sounds a little familiar, but it's not. I haven't heard it often enough to be familiar with.
I just learned about this term. So there's a site.
I've seen that symbol. What you just scrolled past, I've seen that.
This is from the monastery.org. It's a religious-based site. And it says, in quote, holy hush, close quote, domestic violence goes unspoken in the church. Now, this article came out October 20th, 2016, and I'll post it in the show notes for this episode. It talks about while the church is attempting to raise awareness for domestic violence, evidence shows that they have actually been contributing to the problem for years. And the opening thing talks about October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And how all these organizations are holding events to highlight the issue. Those showing support include many churches and religious groups. Although nobody doubts they have good intentions, their efforts are undermined by claims that religious organizations have actually been contributing to the problem for years. Mounting evidence points to this disturbing fact. The church has a history of silencing victims of DV, for short. Academics refer to this phenomenon as the holy hush. And it says the holy hush refers to a suppression of serious issues within the church principle, among them domestic violence. The crux of the problem is this: parishioners rely only on members of the clergy for guidance. They confide in them and trust in the advice they receive. For some, this line of communication is the only viable outlet for voicing personal problems. However, most clergy members have zero training when it comes to handling DV issues. This causes clergy to give advice that is superficial at best, and in some cases, it's downright dangerous. The end result is that, and they have this in bold text, victims are discouraged from coming forward to tell their stories for fear of ruffling feathers or making things worse. Now, I want to pass the mic over to you because I want to know what you know and what you talk to your parishioners about when it comes to the holy hush.
Okay, so this is something that's real. It's not just when it comes down to domestic violence. It also applies to let's just say you have a wife that is a victim. And then I think this too can fall into domestic violence because you said it's domesticated wherever you're domesticated at. So emotional abuse, or you have a spouse that is a serial cheater on the wife or the husband. I think that because it's so much about saving face and it's so much about I don't want my organization to look bad, that oftentimes you'll let innocent people suffer. And if they do speak out, it's like you're going to be silent or you will be silenced. Yeah. And so I thank God that I'm not a part of organizations currently in this present day that do that. And I do not have an organization that does that. So to my knowledge, with the over 834 members of the ministry that God has allowed for me to oversee, I've not had one case of domestic violence with one couple. Not one case. We have had other things that we've had to address, but not one case of domestic violence. I did have a member that was dealing with a situation with violence, but it was with people in employment and that. And I did have to deal with that person accordingly. I think it really boils down to the integrity of the leader. Because if you have a deacon or an assistant pastor or a parishioner or a minister or they can be a security guard, they can be a janitor. It doesn't matter how faithful they are to the ministry. If they are harming their spouse, if they are harming their child, if they are in danger to their community, as a leader that represents God, you have every responsibility to do something regarding that situation and not sweep it underneath the rug. Because if something does happen to that individual, I hate to say it, but the blood is on your hands, especially if you knew, if you are aware of it. And a lot of times what people try to say is, I didn't know, but you did know. Or maybe you didn't want to know because you didn't want the responsibility of having to address that person for what they had done. And this goes further than just ministry, Brother LP. You come from a family. Your wife has a family. We have families. How many times do you see people know that somebody may be a pedophile? And instead of addressing that pedophile, that sweep it underneath the rug. Somebody comes forth. This is that holy hush situation and says, hey, I've been touched. Somebody did something inappropriate to me. Thank God this is the trigger warning podcast. But it happens in family before it happens at church. What we don't realize is people bring their issues that they had at home, they bring it to church. So if they don't go through deliverance, if they don't get those spirits cast out and then go through healing that they need to become whole and different, then they're going to bring that same thing that they grew up with. Maybe they had something happen in their home and their mother didn't believe them or their father didn't believe them and they was given the holy hush. And guess what? Hurt people. I'll tell you, there was a young man I saw in ministry and he was hitting a little kid. He was a teenager and he was hitting a little kid. And everybody was kind of walking and not paying any attention, but it bothered me. So I said, hey, what are you doing? I said, leave him alone. And he said, I'm not doing anything to him. People did this to me all the time. And I said, you know what? It wasn't right when they did it to you, and it's not right now. So some people, they are perpetuating, they are repeating the cycle of something that happened to them, or maybe they witnessed. So if you saw your mother being abused, if you saw your father being an abuser, and you are their child, and let's just say you look up to your dad, you admire your dad, if you don't go through the necessary stuff of deliverance, and I know you all talk about this on the podcast, therapy, you know, yes. You all know where my stance is with my belief system, so I would want you to get a Christian believer. But however, you're listening to me, okay? This is not LP. This is me. This is my stance on that. Someone that can help you to navigate through those problems that you have so that you don't continue that cycle. And what's the problem? What the thing is, LP, is people like to cover up for people to do the same thing that they do. So if you have somebody that has a seat of power, let's just say they're the pastor, and they have a minister or a parishioner or a deacon that is unfaithful to their wife, or they're an abuser, they're not going to expose that abuser. You know why? Because they're an abuser too.
That's right.
So you have to, and if the person comes out and speaks against that abuser, they will be silent or be silenced, because you can't expose one without exposing everyone. It's like a hornet's nest. And so my heart goes out to those who have been victims of abuse and have not been vindicated in the system, the world system, as you should be. But I want you to know that you got comfort in God. If you take it to him in prayer, if you free yourself from that situation, because you don't have to stay in a situation where you're being abused, that he will give you a brand new start at life. And you'll be amazed at what can happen for you when you make that decision to leave. You do not have to stay in an abusive situation. God sees it and he gives us a way of escape. So that's my take on that, Brother LP.
I need a moment, because when I think about everything that you just stated, I think of silence speaks volumes.
That's good.
Especially when you're talking about dealing with the clergy, because these are people who we exalt and put on pedestals because of the divinity, license, certification, degree, training. You know, they were born to do this. My father-in-law is a retired pastor, ordained pastor. He actually married Mrs. LP and I in her home that she grew up in here in the Charlotte area. He still does work with the clergy, even though he's officially retired. Mm-hmm. And we have conversations all the time about things that ministers and pastors and people in the clergy do right, mm-hmm. especially stuff that they do wrong.
Yeah.
I got stories.
Yeah.
I was raised in Catholic school, not in the Catholic church. I went mm-hmm. to Catholic school from 1st to 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And this was in a predominantly black neighborhood and on the west side of St. Louis City. And I don't remember us having any white kids in our school. Mm-hmm. We had some biracial ones, but that was about to close. But we had a mixture of clergy administration. We had most all the black and brown teachers were women, mm-hmm. and all the non-black and brown teachers were nuns, were white mm-hmm. nuns, mm-hmm. and then all the administrators were white males. Some of them were clergy. I believe our principal at the time was not, but mm-hmm. he was Catholic. Mm-hmm. And I think about cases of molestation.
Right.
I don't know if any that happened while I was attending there. Mm-hmm. And there's a Facebook page that I'm a part of for that school, for all the people that attended there, whether they were 1 year or multiple years or what have you. I always look to see, and I don't ask anybody outright, but I always keep my ear open to see if there were any people that I know of that went to that particular Catholic school, because it was just K through 8, mm-hmm. that had any stories, any situations where they were molested, they were raped, they were abused, sexually assaulted. Again, this is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, so mm-hmm. we say what it is what it is. How you, and I'm not asking you, do you know of any of these things that happen at your church? Because we know these things can happen any and everywhere. In the last few minutes of this podcast, I want you to talk to me about modalities, because we always end each episode of the interview talking about modalities before we jump into our missing persons case. There's an organization that we refer people to, one of many. It's called RAIN, which stands for Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And I want to pull it up here on the screen in a few seconds. And I want you to talk about how you, as a member of the clergy, talk to your parishioners about getting, or as my father-in-law famously said, if you need help, I'm going to give you 2 words: seek help. Mm-hmm. How do you help your members of your house of worship seek help?
So we have many different resources, and then you just got to be honest and transparent and put that all out there in the beginning. So if a person is struggling with this, or if they have something like this, you let them know what areas you can go and get that. Believe it or not, Brother LP, oftentimes in many ministries, you don't have to refer outside, because you have those things within house to service the people that may be in need of those certain things. And so, for instance, if they're dealing with homelessness, we don't have a lot of cases where people just openly and outright come out and say, I have struggled with molestation. But there was a young lady that started a ministry and a movement entitled No More Secrets in Indiana, where I was a part of that movement, where she talked about some of the things she had been involved in. And because she experienced this, she wanted to make sure others didn't have to experience that as well. And so this resource is like, I don't know if this one to vouch for, Brother LP does, is his platform. However, they do have different resources in that they provide to the congregation. Back to the point, I don't want to run past this. I know we are closing out. When it comes to that,
you got time. When
it comes to that holy hush topic, I think that just like when they say they got a blue code for police officers, like they try to stand together, that when it comes down to being a parishioner, it is your own conviction before the Lord, right? So even if you see other people are allowing something to happen or are aware that something is happening and they're not addressing it, you have to be accountable to God for what you allow to happen within you. If you know that there's a guy that's in ministry, rather everybody loves him, rather he's very charismatic, and these are usually the ones that is a pedophile, that is someone who has molested or has cases that that just seem really iffy about him, nothing concrete, and you don't do your due diligence to make sure that the other young people or unexpected victims are safe, then you are held accountable for what you do and do not say, or do not do, just because everyone else is going along to get along. Because this is where, Brother LP, the holy hush does not just affect the victim, it also affects the person that wants to help the victim. Because if you stand out and you say, hey, this is wrong, we need to do something about this, and everybody else is taking a united front that we're not going to do something about it, then guess what happens to you too? So if they're stoning them, they're going to stone you as well. And right. So I'm saying that for those who may know people who are in situations. I had a young lady that reached out to me some years ago about a situation that was going on with her husband, but she was not honest about the fact that he was abusive. She did not share that token of information. She just shared surface level things. And of course, I told her to pray, but it took time for God to reveal certain things, and also for another minister in the gospel to reveal something else as well, for us to realize, honey, you need to get out of this situation. This is not even something that you need to be in. And so I just believe that those who have those positions and those seats of power, you have to be accountable to God and make sure that those people that you are leading know that if they share something with you, then you won't lead them in a desperate or a destitute situation, but you'll get them to safety, because they sought help when they sought you. All right, that's it.
Last question to you about this modality, because that previous article that I played or that I read, it talked about members of the clergy not being trained enough to deal with these situations effectively. I know as a first responder, we don't get nearly enough mental health training. I tell people famously a story about when I was working at the fire department, because I was a firefighter and a medic, and I worked for a private EMS service and a paid fire protection district. So I'm doing my 48-hour shift at the fire department. They brought in a trafficking expert, did a 90-minute presentation on everything related to human and sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. At the end, it was probably about 10 of us in there, including leadership. And at the end, he asked, are there any questions? I raised up both hands, so they looked at me all crazy and stuff. I said, all right, Penton, what's going on with you? I said, I got questions, Mm-hmm. And he said, well, what's your question? I said, can you go back to slide such and such? I wanted to get a little bit more clarification on that particular slide. He goes back to that. He answered my question. Then I had my other hand up. He said, what's your next question? I said, this is to the group. Mm-hmm. How many of you all have had calls that you've gone on where your antennas were raised because maybe you went in this house to help somebody who was injured, and you saw some of these red flags that he talked about? He talked about going in houses and seeing locks on doors to bedrooms, not just a regular lock. I'm talking about like a padlock and stuff. Right. Just all kind of different things. You talk to somebody who's a patient. Let's say, for all intents and purposes, it's a woman, a female. She won't answer. The guy keeps answering for her, to the point where you got to be like, hey, I need her to talk because I got to diagnose her mental status. Mm-hmm. If I say, hey, what's your name? And she says, and I say, excuse me, can you repeat it? And she says that again. Maybe she's having a stroke. Right. But maybe she was not having a stroke. She can talk fluently, but because she's being a victim of domestic violence, she's not going to speak, because she's going to speak when she's spoken to by her abuser. That's right. How do you, as a clergy person, what type of training is offered? And so, you know what, Brother LP, and I know many of the people that are listening in, because I don't know how often you get believers that are Holy Ghost filled on here, may not be able to understand this, but a lot of our training comes from God, and he'll give us discernment. Okay. So there are certain things that, you wouldn't know in the natural, but you just know. And somebody, for instance, there was a young lady that came to church, and I was singing on the praise team, and I had a dream, and I saw this young lady like she was in trouble. And so when I got to church the next morning, I knew I was going to ask her if she was okay. And as I was singing, once we were getting to the end of service, she tried to dart out of church, like she was going to leave very fastly. And I came off the altar fast, and I, found her, and I said, God is showing me that's something going on with you. And I said, can I pray for you? And then she said, yes. So I started praying for her. And as I was praying for her, I felt the Lord speaking to me regarding some things that were going on. And I said, where's your husband? Just in the midst of me
praying for her, and she just started crying. And so when I say like the kind of training that we have is we do need more systems in place. We do have some systems in place, but a lot of what you see with believers in Jesus Christ that have the gift of the Holy Spirit, God shows us stuff and tells us stuff that we wouldn't even know had he not shown us or had he not told us. Because a person can lie. And most of the time, people that are domestic violence victims, some of them, believe it or not, don't want to be out of the situation. They are accustomed to the abuse, and they may not think that they need to be free. There are some people that want to be free, but there are some people that are accustomed to the abuse that they don't think that they need to be free. But what if God sends you, like he did with Moses, and I'm not trying to preach, and says, hey, to the person that's the abuser, you got to stop hitting this woman. Like, God is going to deal with you about the fact that you keep putting your hands on this woman, or with your children, because the two are synopsis. You can't be a good husband and an abusive father, or a good wife and an abusive mother, because God sees what you're doing to the children too. So he may have somebody to address you, and this is what they consider to be prophets, that you heard directly from God, and you come and speak to someone and tell them, hey, God sees what you're doing to that child, and if you don't stop, he's going to deal with you. So it's not always an outside system. It may be the Lord speaking directly to you.
This is why the Trigger Warning Talk podcast covers topics like human and sex trafficking. We cover domestic violence. We talk about sexually based offenses. We cover true crime stories. And at the end of every episode, we do a missing persons case, courtesy of Mrs. LP, who is our unlicensed, uncertified, true crime, unsolved detective, because she doesn't like the cases. Once they're solved, she's like, next. She's not interested in. I want to thank you so much. On the website here for this podcast, we have RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. RAIN.org is the site. I have it on the screen I'm sharing that gives you all kind of help 24/7. You can call or you can chat. They have a button on there. They have a link where you can donate money. They have consulting and training, crisis support and prevention strategies. They have tips and terms and policies and so much information for anyone who wants information, wants to be educated, whether you're just a regular old Joe or Jane, whether you are a professional, paraprofessional, whether you're a member of the clergy, whether you are a young person, middle-aged, older person. There's tons of information that are out here available. We have a bunch of those links in the show notes for every episode. I want to pull up the link to your link tree also because it's a great link. Tell us how people can get in contact with you while I'm sharing this on the screen.
Amen. So if you want to connect with the ministry or with the movement, you can send an email to BossLadySR at JESUSgirl.ENT.com. That's BossLadySR at JESUSGIRLENT.com. In addition to that, you can follow us on Instagram at JesusGirl_LLC or YouTube at JesusGirl.ENT. And so those are some ways that you can follow us on social media and that you can get connected. We're also streaming twice weekly on the Jesus Girl ENT podcast. That's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, almost every single platform that podcast stream on. We're on there.
I got your link tree up here. I'm going to put that in the show notes so people can look at your link tree. She has JesusGirl.ENT TV on YouTube. She has a Jesus Girl blog site. She has the JesusGirl.ENT podcast. I was on there, and check out that episode. She has merch, also Jesus Girl attire. She's on Threads. She has the website, Jesus Girl LLC, Google webpage, a lot of different bits of information you can look at on this link tree. She's on Clubhouse. Is that Monday through Friday?
It's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I want to point out something too. I am an author. And so these book links that you're seeing that he's scrolling past as well, we're getting ready to issue our 9th issue of the Jesus Girl ENT magazine. Those are all available on Amazon. I also wrote and self-published the Go Forth, Activate Your Call book. That's also available on Amazon as well.
All right. You even have a How to Launch a Podcast Masterclass available. Yes. Mm-hmm. I want to be in that Jesus Girl ENT. I need you to do a piece on me.
Okay.
All right. I just love you to pieces, Miss Birdie. Your mom is amazing. She's just a blessed individual. You didn't tell people that you are a martial artist too. You failed to mention that you used to box, right?
I used to box, and I did do a little bit of martial arts when I was younger. I'm getting more into, I want to get more back into martial. This is funny. So I told my
boxing is a martial art. People don't know that.
It's a form of martial arts as well. Yeah. Well, I used to do karate when I was younger. And then a little bit ago, I was teaching my children some things from karate, but I've taught them boxing stance, and I used to box. I was an amateur boxer. I won silver gloves, golden gloves, and I lost twice in the Junior Olympics, and I can tell you why. But anyways, I was telling my dad, who used to be an amateur boxer as well, that I was going to get back into boxing. And he said, you better not get out there and get knocked out. So that was just our running joke. But I do believe that it's good to know how to defend yourself. And then also, it's a great stress reliever. Believe it or not, you get out into the ring, it's really good exercise, and you start doing your calisthenics and you're working out, and you're gonna feel so much better.
I want to thank you for sharing all the information and the knowledge that you have. I know sometimes it's hard to get people from the church to have these bluntly, not brutally, these bluntly honest conversations because of the subject matter. And so I just salute you, and I appreciate your candor and your openness and your willingness to enlighten us on your thoughts about the holy hush.
And I'm grateful that you, I'm sorry, Brother LP, go ahead. I know you close.
No, that's it. I just wanted to let you know that we appreciate everything that you bring to the podcast. I always tell people it's my podcast, but it's the guest interview. So you say what it is what you say. You can be as general or specific, and whatever you share, I just ask that you be honest, no bigotry.
Right. And so I'm grateful that you have this trigger warning podcast, because there are some topics that need to be addressed and talked about head on to save somebody's life, right? So you don't think just by having an episode like this that somebody could be driving and hear this and know, like, I need to protect myself, or know that I just bought a weapon and maybe I should put it in a safer environment, or maybe I should do a walkthrough safety precautions for the people that are in my home. And so I'm grateful that you have this podcast. I believe that it is ordained of God, because some of the things that you are addressing, people don't address. They're not talking about. And I'm honored to be here, and I'm grateful that you got me to get on here. It was a little bit of a struggle, because I'm still trying to figure out this video stuff, but I'm grateful I'm here.
Yeah. I just like to have people to have options. Again, more and more people are watching podcasts. You can listen to this Trigger Warning Talk podcast. It's all 4 words. Trigger Warning Talk podcast is streaming on 12 plus platforms. We're on all the major ones: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify. You can watch it on Spotify. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, which is the company name Penton Pending Consulting Solutions, LLC. And wherever you get your favorite podcast, we're on there. Minister Shaniqua Robinson practices and preaches from the great state of Minnesota, my Midwest sister. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, so I've been in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities area many times, many moons ago. And so I hope to get up there one day soon, so you and I can break bread and exchange some hugs. Me, you, Miss Birdie, group hug, family hug.
We're on at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Okay, so 9 a.m. my time. Okay, so 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and I'll be in the audience listening and getting some of the word, because you're great. Peace and blessings be upon you and the family. We're going to jump into our next episode, which is the missing persons case. And I will tell everybody here that is watching, that's going to continue to stay on, that missing persons, when we do those cases, 99% of them are about Black and brown folks, because we don't see enough of those cases in the media, no matter where we are, no matter who we're talking about, no matter who's in the White House, no matter who's in Congress, no matter who's in our court system. We don't see enough of these cases. And so this is where Mrs. LP comes into play. So she gives me a new case, or maybe an old case that's still unsolved. Have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you for having me. Okay.
Peace.
Peace.
This story that I want to cover is not about a particular black or brown missing person. I'm going to show you a story that I found from KARE11, which is based in Minneapolis area. The story comes from KARE11 News, their YouTube channel. They have a story on their YouTube channel called Minnesota Marks Missing and Murdered Black Women and Girls Day. Now, this was posted April 9th, 2025. I want to share this with you because it really highlights why we cover missing person case. Here's why.
Capital Today, a first of its kind event highlighting cases of missing and murdered Black women and girls. Jessica Hart shares the emotional stories shared.
Inside the Minnesota State Capitol.
It's a good day in Minnesota today.
The rotunda was filled with stories.
We don't want any more families to have to endure this.
Stories not often told.
Not another Taylor. Not another Taylor.
Joyce Hayden's daughter, Taylor, was murdered in 2016, a tragedy many Minnesota families understand.
Black women and girls deserve safety, protection, and advocacy, and for their stories to be told.
To make sure people hear those stories, the State Office for Missing and Murdered Black Women and Girls held its first ever Day at the Capitol.
The families and the victims keep me going.
Kalina Burks leads that office.
Black women make up 7% of the population here in Minnesota and 40% of the domestic violence cases. Every 3 out of 4 Black women are murdered compared to their white counterparts. So we were here to address the disparities.
We didn't know where she was. We couldn't find her.
Lakeisha Lee wishes.
She was found in her car 10 days after she went missing.
Were addressed in 2013 for her little sister, Brittany.
My whole world has been shattered. It's been a lot of picking up the pieces still to this day.
Lee helps lead Minnesota's task force for murdered and missing Black women and girls, the first office of its kind in the country.
It makes sure people know and remember how important it is to protect Black and brown girls.
It's important because every life matters. You don't want families and victims to navigate this system alone, and you want them to have resources. And typically they don't have resources that their counterparts do, and so we're here to provide that support.
Brooke says this day is needed at the state capitol, but she hopes one day the need will disappear.
I hope that one day I don't have a job.
In St. Paul, Jessica Hart, KARE 11 News.
For further information, you can always reach out to KARE11 News. For more information, I'll post a link to this story in the show notes. There's so many organizations, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, you have NAMUS, you have the FBI.org. There's a number of organizations. We'll have the information in the show notes as we do with every episode. LPR.